Yo, my last video went down. That's crazy. I don't know what that was about. It was crazy. But anyways, we're ready to get into this one. Let's get it.
Think that even if we make mistakes, we can learn from them, pick ourselves back up, and do better next time. Video games, on the other hand, say, that, you made your bed, now lie in it, idiot. Or at least some of them do, as we found out recently when we looked at little decisions in video games that can have huge, wide-reaching consequences, from making the game much harder to locking you out of the good ending permanently. And it seems that this sort of thing happens all the time, as you, the erudite and observant outside Xbox audience, could think of many more examples of ways in which you could screw yourself over, sometimes without even realizing it. Here are 7 more ways you screwed yourself over with a single decision at the start of the game, as suggested by the commenters on our previous video. Enjoy, beware spoilers ahead for the following games, and maybe don't touch anything while we're here. You never know what it's going to do.
Oh boy, you're about to get your phone back, aren't you?
Let's go collect our bags and away from this mosquito-infested backwoods dump.
Door's locked, bags inside.
For an object lesson in how tiny decisions can have massive consequences, we look to The Quarry, the 2022 horror game from Supermassive about a bunch of youthful camp counselors of varying levels of bearability being menaced by a family of werewolves.
Damn it! I thought I told you kids to check everything.
Look, it's not that big of a deal, okay? We'll just spend one more night here.
No! No!
That's because there is one seemingly inconsequential decision very early in the game which, if you make the wrong choice, makes it all but certain that a character will die hours later in your playthrough. And that character is played by Disney Channel royalty Brenda Song, so this is serious business, people. This butterfly effect butterfly starts flapping its wings near the start of the game, when camp counselors Emma and Abigail have to make a decision about whether or not to break into a locked cabin to retrieve their bags.
All right, let's do this. On 3. 1, 2, 3! Ugh.
If they choose to break in, Abby discovers a well-loved old teddy bear that belonged to one of the younger campers, and you're given the choice of whether to leave it or take it with you.
Let's get you back to Izzy.
This may seem like an unimportant decision, but later in the game, Abby will leave her backpack in the kitchen. This kitchen becomes the location of a climactic scene featuring Counsellor Dylan and Counsellor Caitlin, played by Brenda Song of Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior fame, being chased by a ravening werewolf. If you chose to take the teddy bear, then you, playing as Caitlin, are given 2 options here: run or freezer. Choosing run has you make a break for it and get eaten along with Dylan. But choosing freezer has you throw the teddy bear into the freezer. The werewolf follows and you can slam the door, trapping him inside and making your escape. If you don't have the teddy bear, your choices remain the same, except this time the freezer option means that Caitlin runs into the freezer and slams the door shut. Unfortunately for Caitlin, this freezer doesn't open from the inside, and so she's trapped without any means of escape. And later, we find out that she froze to death. There's a message here, and I think it's steal anything that isn't nailed down. Doesn't sound right, but here we are.
Above you is another of my subjects. He is about the same age as your son, and you have never met him. But he has a long life ahead of him.
Even serial killers must have their off days. You know, the kind of day where it's 5 PM on a Friday and you've still got an elaborate death trap to design and build before the weekend. And while Jigsaw of the Saw movie franchise is famous for such classics of the medium like the reverse bear trap and the pit full of used syringes, he must have been really phoning it in during the Saw 2 video game, in which he forces his victims to walk across balance beams like they're doing the world's deadliest field sobriety test. That's at least a couple of beers. Even worse than the actual mechanics of the awful balance beam minigame, however, is the fact that you can lock yourself out of Saw 2's best ending simply by demonstrating what should be a basic human ability to not fall off things. In the prologue of the game, you play as Campbell, a drug addict trying to survive Jigsaw's trials and learn a valuable lesson about not being a drug addict, I guess.
You flushed your own life down the toilet with your addiction to drugs. The sins of the father pass on to the son, who is also a drug addict.
When you reach the balance beam at the end of the prologue, Jigsaw explains that someone else who you've never met is also participating in the same test above you, and that whichever of you gets to the elevator at the end of the balance beam first will be the only one to survive. So you think better complete this objective in this video game, and you do your very best to wobble your way across the beam before you're killed. After that, the prologue ends and the main game begins, and as for Campbell, well, he barely has time to congratulate himself before this happens.
I can't let him live in a world with people like you in it!
Game over.
Honestly, I don't know why I even bother signing up for Jigsaw's torture mazes anymore. For the bulk of the game, you're then playing as Michael Tapp, the son of the character you play in the first Saw game. What follows is a series of Jigsaw's greatest hits and lesser-known duds, like electrical rewiring puzzles, but it's not until the very end of the game that you're presented with your old nemesis, the balance beam.
Now your life rests in the sacrifice of a stranger. Below you is a man that you have never met. For you to live, he must sacrifice what is left of his life.
That's right, it's the moment you experienced from Campbell's perspective earlier, only this time you're playing as Michael Tapp. And if you, as Campbell, easily negotiated the balance beam way back in the intro sequence, bad luck, you're getting jigsawed. If you lobbed Campbell off the beam in the prologue, on the other hand, you get what passes for a good ending in this grim torture porn slog. One where Michael either leaves and tells the world the truth about Jigsaw, or becomes his new apprentice.
You can take those files that your father collected and publish the truth in a newspaper that will be used to wrap fish the very next day. Or you can help people see the truth within themselves.
Because after going through all of that, who wouldn't want to stick around and make a career out of it? Is the pig mask negotiable? Just thought I'd ask.
Bring this fading light into the shadows. Dance with him the dance of life and death.
In a game called Vampire, in which you play as a vampire, you'd imagine that drinking blood is a key pillar of the gameplay. And indeed, for most players, that is going to be the case, because feeding on all that piquant plasma is the best way to get XP in Vampire, and if you want to level up your character, you're going to have a very hard time doing so without downing more red stuff than a wine aunt on Christmas afternoon. Indeed, drinking blood in this game is preposterously easy. From almost the very first moment you're in control of your character, Dr. Jonathan Reed, you're able to latch on to a harmless, friendly citizen and gulp down a few pints whenever the mood takes you. Except for the fact that if you want to see the game's best ending, you need to never do that. Ever. Or, as the name of the achievement you get for finishing the game without ever feeding on a single citizen puts it, not even once.
Since I murdered my poor Mary after my rebirth, I vowed to never take a life again, and I've succeeded.
Not killing a single non-enemy is the only way that Dr. Reed is able to convince his lady love Elizabeth to journey with him to America to seek a cure for her tainted blood, proving that he is able to stay true to his doctor's oath to do no harm, even in undeath.
England is safe, for you have prevailed. I wish you a peace duly earned for the centuries yet to come. And they will come.
When you consider that the rest of the game's endings involve the two of them being locked up in a castle, Jonathan going on a killing spree, and Elizabeth throwing herself into a fire, you can see why you might want to get the best ending. But if you decided to feed on one delicious human just once, even during the tutorial when it teaches you how to do it, sorry, you're out of luck.
No more. Not tonight. Not like this. I will not take another life.
I guess you'll just have to learn to live with it, with your incredible vampire powers and your eternal life and your cool, deathly pallor and your selection of amazing codes. Sorry, why was this a bad idea again?
Man of Medan is a horror game brought to us by the folks behind The Quarry and Until Dawn, set on a ghost ship and starring a bunch of extremely mortal young adults. So as you can imagine, there are more ways to get yourself killed than you can shake a boat hook at. Most of these avoidable deaths, however, are a case of somewhat swift cause and effect, whether that be failing a QTE and getting got by a monster, failing a QTE and falling to your death, or passing a QTE but killing one of your friends because you think they're a monster. Just can't catch a break, these young adults. If you do successfully make it all the way to the end of the game with a character still alive, you might expect them to be safe now on account of how the credits are rolling. If you've never watched a horror movie. If this were a Friday the 13th, this is the exact moment that you'd get Jasoned. Much like in a Friday the 13th, the end credits here are no safe haven from sudden death. If you chose a particular option way back towards the beginning of the game, while scuba diving as the character Julia.
Hey, a souvenir would be cool.
It's not like one tiny little thing would hurt anybody. I won't tell if you won't.
Early on, you're given the option of swimming quickly to the surface to check on your brother against the advice of your dive partner, Alex.
I'm sorry, my brother's up there.
Julia, this is crazy. You just gotta wait a few seconds.
In theory, you shouldn't have done that, sure, but back on the surface, it turns out your brother is fine and Julia seems as healthy as a horse. Why should you not, therefore, choose to celebrate with an ice cold brewski?
Beer o'clock.
Except you shouldn't have done that either, it turns out, because Julia is now a walking dead woman regardless of what else happens in the game. Seconds after the end credits roll, the combined effects of surfacing too fast and drinking alcohol will finally catch up with Julia, bringing on a delayed bout of decompression sickness as deadly as it was totally avoidable several hours earlier. So on account of your unsafe diving behaviour at the start of the game, Julia, having survived the entire ghost ship nightmare, dies on the way home.
Hey, Jules, what is it?
Conrad. Oh, Connie, I don't feel so good.
Which is a pretty embarrassing thing to have to put on the tombstone. Just say she was murdered by boat ghosts, I would.
Ooh, looks like the fairy dust just wore off.
Somehow, the original version of this video didn't include a single Sierra game, despite
None will have meaning, and you won't even care.
Dark Souls series creator Hidetaka Miyazaki describes the Dark Souls vibe as a slow and possibly endless descent into ruin, which coincidentally is how I describe my mental state after 20 rounds with the Fume Knight. I'm therefore not looking to make Dark Souls 2 any harder than it already is, and yet such a thing is entirely possible without even realizing you're doing it, because Dark Souls is a pitiless chasm of despair that you pay $70 for. Dark Souls 2 contains various factions called Covenants, which require you to play in a particular way in order to earn rewards. One such covenant is the Company of Champions, which can be joined early in the game in the hub area, Majula, by kneeling in front of this rock and selecting yes 3 times. This is something that it's entirely possible to do without really appreciating what joining the Company of Champions entails. Sure, the description is
wish we could watch it all. Shit's crazy. Anyways, this should be it for today. I'm gonna go monetize the. Well, I can't monetize them